Chaim.
Here you go, it's a recording.
Oh, of course. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Tanya Class. We are studying today chapter 24. The theme of this chapter is, now we're giving the mirror image of what we learned in the previous chapter, which is how every mitzvah is in essence a personification of the first mitzvah, believe in Hashem. We explain how every mitzvah is an opportunity for a person to become a vehicle for the Shekhinah, a vehicle for God. When we do a mitzvah, our body, our senses, our soul becomes a vehicle for God. It reveals God in the world, especially when we study Torah, which is even a greater unification. And that is actually the root of all the mitzvahs. Believing in Hashem is the driving force behind doing God's will. Doing God's will is actually revealing the oneness of Hashem in the world. It's making a statement to the world that God is a creator, and He's a creator that's in control. He's in control of me. Now we move on to the other side of the coin, the negative commandment. We said the commandment, the second of the 10 commandments, to not worship idols, is the root behind all the negative commandments, not disobeying Hashem. Or in other words, by disobeying God, the point that we're going to make, you're actually recognizing another force, doesn't appear at first as another deity. You know, I'm not worshiping myself, and I'm believing in my acts. But in essence, that is idol worship, believing in something other than God. Whether you attribute this power or that power, the sin of idol worship is not saying that there's someone who's as powerful as God. Actually, the early idol worshippers, the Rambam gives us a brief history of idolatry. He explains how the first idol worshippers believed in God, and they just said that God is the supreme being. He is the creator of everything, and He gave power to other angels, and slowly it evolved into people bowing down to stones and wood. We learned in the Chumash last week. It's Reven. So it's the beginning of this week. So the Torah talks about two kinds of idol worship, of idols, of stone and wood and gold and silver. It says the stone and wood are the ones that are displayed in public. The gold and silver people keep. The fact that the Torah is pointing out that point is to point out to you, look what's going on over here. These are gods that need to be protected lest they be stolen. This is what they serve. They serve objects that they have to watch. That's the
treat them like possession that's more or less valuable depending on what they're made of. They're a god.
But it's a god. You pray for protection, but you have to protect it. There's a story in the Gemara that Antoninus was a Roman emperor. There's different opinions who exactly he was, but he was very close. Had a very close relationship with Rabbi Levi Liberow. So he once sent him a very precious gift. Rabbi Levi Liberow sent him back a mezuzah, a piece of parchment. So he told him, I sent you this diamond, whatever it was, and you sent him this piece of parchment. So he told him that what I sent you, I have to now hire a guard to watch. What you sent to me, I need to hire a guard to watch it. What I sent you is Hashem protecting me. And so in general, we usually understand the God as someone who could protect us, not someone that we need to protect.
It's just similar with Avram Avinu and his father's Terach's idol, something similar, right?
As the story goes, Avram Avinu staged
He broke all
the idols, and he put the axe in the hand of the biggest idol, and he told his father the biggest idol broke them all. So I told him, you're speaking foolishness. He says, it's true. Why are you serving these statues? So, in essence, idol worship is a lot broader than just bowing down to stones. There's a philosophy behind it, a very flawed, very wrong philosophy. But it originates not in denying God outright. It's just saying that God gave power to others, which if God wished to do, he would do, but he didn't. No one has power other than Hashem, so there's no reason to pray or serve or worship anyone, anything other than God, including yourself. There's something called kosher idolatry. Heard of that? The Gemara says that those of us who live outside of Israel, we worship idolatry in a kosher way. And we'll get to the explanation, but the idea is that, in short, that living out of Israel, which also living in Israel means a person has a more the sages always try to move those who didn't live in Israel, try to live in Israel, and that's where Jews are meant to live. That's the real way of living like a Jew. Also physically, most of the many mitzvahs that we cannot do, and spiritually, mainly spiritually, and this actually applies mainly this concept of the spiritual sensitivity of the land of Israel. The air of Israel makes one smart. So when it means living in an environment where godliness is more obvious than outside of Israel. So outside of Israel, the sages say, of course we keep the Torah and do all the mitzvahs, but there's a certain environment which is impure, and it creates a certain notion within us that God is the creator of the world, but I have control over my own life, which is a big mistake. So if it doesn't lead us to do wrong things because we are believing Jews and we're observant Jews, but that notion is a problem. That's the problem of Golus, and even now in Israel, that is felt in many ways, because Israel now is not in its true state of being, the land of Israel. That's Mashiach will restore that.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you. As we say, there's nothing but God. God is the only power above us, and at the same exact time, the Rebbe is demanding the coming of Mashiach. God's already here. I mean, what do you mean? What's the big deal with Mashiach if it's only God?
It's not going to change anything.
So what I guess I'm trying to say, to integrate, there's this idea of a king. There's this idea that there is a figure of Vayimida B'Shem Moshe Abdo. They believe that God and the Moshe servant. So it's not just God, is it? Or
it is just God. It's just that.
How is it integrated? The idea of Mashiach or Moshe. How is that integrated with just God?
What Mashiach will do is he'll make us aware of it. So in essence, nothing will change. Nothing will. That it wasn't true. Nothing will become true. What will happen is that our subjective, the fact that it's obscured, that we don't see, we don't realize it, we don't live that way, or we live that way, but it's a struggle. It will become natural.
Well, how will Mashiach do that?
And that's
Simcha.
Huh?
Simcha.
Mashiach will do that by
everything, and I suppose everything, every mitzvah, every action, everything that we contemplate in Yahadut will come from Simcha. It'll be such an innate purpose to be Mekayim whatever Hashem wants. Simcha is the difference. So today we live life.
Right. The mitzvahs will be done. That's more the result. I think what David is asking is what will cause that.
What is the role?
The Simcha of Avodas Hashem.
Let's take Simcha, for example. He's saying Simcha. Look, if you look at videos in 770, you haven't seen, I haven't seen a certain context of where the Jews with such achdus and a Simcha and a chayos, like in those certain videos from 770 you see over there. What's causing that? The Rebbe. The Rebbe is some kind of electric rod over there that's causing a great Simcha. So there is this human that is higher than human or something. I'm just trying. Since the Rebbe's main thing is the Mashiach should come right this second. Obviously, there's some value in Mashiach that adds to or brings meaning to God.
That's what it is. The whole the idea of Moshe Rabbeinu, and we'll actually touch upon soon this concept of the Rabbanim. We'll get to it in a moment. That that the only one we worship is Hashem. To worship anyone else is, even if he's a great tzaddik, is a great sin. The what the tzaddik accomplishes is he makes us more aware of that truth, either by his teachings and mainly by his example. And seeing, for example, you brought the example of simcha. When someone is around a tzaddik who feels joy in every mitzvah that he does, and it radiates, so it rubs off. That's the importance of not only doing what we, what it says and doing it, but also being around people who live it. It rubs off. When a person is in a good environment, it affects him. In an environment where there's simcha shel mitzvah, it helps a lot. And that's the main goal. And in time of Mashiach, we'll have that tzaddik, or that leader, that king, who will be a living example. Not only will be that himself, will have the power to enforce that on the world. It says that one of the jobs of Mashiach is he will impose Torah mitzvahs on the rest of the world. He will be democratic. It'll be very clear. There'll be one way to live. Yeah, so the word for compelling in Hebrew is yochef. So it's interesting that it became, in Hebrew, we say fun. It's kef. Right? So Mashiach's way to compel everyone to do mitzvahs is not going to be, you won't have to force it on us against our will, but
It's worthwhile.
yeah, he's going to show us that it's the best way to go. So we have over here in chapter 24, the Alter is touching on the subject, explaining it quite well, what it means that every sin is in essence a act of denial of Hashem's either existence or Hashem's authority, and on many different levels. Some levels we can't help, like for example the fact that we're not aware of it naturally. It's not as natural. You don't have to make laws that people have to breathe, or even that people need to eat and drink. But naturally, the Torah does have to make laws that you have to eat kosher. Right? Because eating and drinking comes naturally. There's a statement in the Gemara that mitzvahs will become nullified in the time of Mashiach. One of the core principles of Judaism is that the Torah will never change. Nothing will, the reason why we reject different so-called prophets is because they preached a message of the Torah changing. The reason why we reject different movements, dominations within Judaism, is because they reject this core principle, this value. So what does it mean that mitzvahs will become extinct, will become batel? It doesn't mean that, God forbid, we will stop doing these acts. Now these acts are a commandment. When do you have to command? When do you have to make a law? When there's someone who has an option, he may or may not do it, you have to command him. When it will become natural to us, when godliness will become the most obvious thing in the world, there won't be any need to command. So the mitzvahs, the commandment aspect, will not exist anymore. We'll keep doing it. We'll put on tefillin, but it will be as natural as it is to breathe to us. And all we'll think about and all we'll do is Torah and Judaism. It's going to become the air that we breathe. It's going to become our life. So that's what it means. The mitzvahs will be nullified. But now, so to live that life to the fullest until Mashiach comes is not something that most of us could accomplish on our own. There are those tzaddikim in every generation that have that, but that's not expected of everyone to do. What is expected is that in the practical aspect we will behave that way. Even if we don't, in the awareness level, it's something that we have to keep struggling to get into our awareness. But in action, we definitely could control. That's what we were given freedom of choice, and we could choose to live that way practically. And slowly to try to bring it into our awareness. But that's not as easy, and that's not a commandment. But to behave that way definitely is a commandment. So, and we have several levels over here. First of all, what is an expression of idol worship, idolatry? It's the 365 negative commandments. All the things that the Torah says don't, you're not allowed to do. doing it would actually be accepting someone else, something else other than God, by disobeying God's will. That's what every sin is. So this actually act itself is sinful, and when a person does that act, the powers that he has in him, we called earlier in the Tanya the levushim, the garments of the soul, the thought, speech, and action of his, which is invested in this negative act or thought or word, the power, he's also investing it, just like by doing a mitzvah. Not only is God's will happening, you are becoming a chariot, a vehicle for God. The opposite. By you doing a sin, a person committing a sin, God forbid, he is becoming a vehicle to the Sitra Achra, which we're going to speak about in a moment, the Sitra Achra, what that means. But not God. How could that exist? We'll address that. And not only the person's powers, even the person's being. If my being is now invested in using my power of action, my power of touch and feel, to touch and feel something I'm not supposed to, or to say, or to do something I'm not supposed to do, so I become a chariot, a merkava, a vehicle to the Sitra Achra, to the other side, the Klippa. And I'm actually becoming an idol. Sometimes the idol is something that external of myself that I serve. Sometimes it's just me. I'm making myself, I'm declaring myself as something which lives for a reason other than to serve God. Or on a more achievable level, or something that at least does not deny God. Sometimes we can do things for our own pleasure. It's not a sin outright. And so it's a mitzvah to always try to cut down on doing things for yourself, but at least it's kosher. So doing an aveira is that's what it is. You're actually putting yourself, making yourself, what you're doing is wrong, and you who are doing it are becoming a wrong, unnecessary thing in the world. If I'm using my powers to do the opposite of God's will, then that's not why I was created. I'm defeating my purpose.
What about Reform Judaism? That's what you were talking about before. That's sort of
Reform, conservative as well. Anyone who does not accept halacha as a binding Torah Sheba'al Peh and Torah Shebaktav, whoever doesn't accept that as binding is rejecting one of the 12 principles, 13 principles actually, of Judaism. So the Alter Rebbe tells us over here, and he just got us back into it. So we're going. That what is idol worship? What is idolatry? It's not only bowing down and believing in other gods. It's doing any of the 365 negative commandments and the Rabbanon. The Rabbanon is a term that's used. There's biblical commandments and rabbinical commandments. There's a year or two ago I read somewhere that there's a place in a Jewish organization, not a religious, like sort of a community center or something, that they were doing a fundraiser, and they had the hechsher, so to speak, of the food was biblical kosher. I'm not sure how exactly what that would mean. Maybe there's no pork served, or
I haven't heard of that hechsher.
Some Reform rabbi was giving a hechsher.
Oh,
That was his hechsher, biblical kosher. Judaism, it says that's actually one of the sources where we know that there must be an oral Torah, Torah Sheba'al Peh, is from the mitzvah of shchita. It says, what does the Torah tell us that the meat has to be slaughtered? It says you should eat the meat, you should slaughter the meat as I have commanded you. Anyone who reads the entire 5 books of the Torah will not find anywhere laws of kosher slaughter.
No.
But the Torah is telling us that there is laws of slaughter which I commanded you. And that's one of the places that we see that there's the Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral Torah that's hinted. There's many other sources. This is one. This is an obvious one. This is the one that you could use in a debate. It's straight out. And the Torah was given with a set of instructions, and the sages of the generations passed the tradition down until it was written down in the Mishnah and then explained in the Talmud, and that's binding. And later on in the Shulchan Aruch, which defined that was accepted by all Jews as this is the Torah Sheba'al Peh. So when we observe the Shulchan Aruch, the laws that are written, there's different customs within that, but the customs are only details. They never touch core subjects, core halachas of the Torah. So it's always that's actually observing one of the mitzvahs of the Torah. Another mitzvah in the Torah that you have to follow the Sanhedrin. In other words, God didn't say, "I'm giving you the Torah and that it's going to stay that's all you need to know." God, one of the mitzvahs is that there's a Sanhedrin, there's a Supreme Court which decides any disputes and any unclarity, and Hashem, the idea of worship, we said, is of believing in God, is that no one is worthy of worship other than Hashem Himself. No created being should be serving any other created being. Right? Makes sense?
How do you have people that are shluchim, for example? The Rebbe says, go here, go there. They fulfill the Rebbe's command.
Worshipping?
Or even
you're worshipping, or are you taking instructions?
Serving.
You're serving the Rebbe, or you're serving God?
Well, this is an important thought. Like, for example, when Moshe read the whole book of the Torah, Moshe says, I'm commanding you this, and commanding you that.
Why do we believe in Moshe?
Oh, the why now is, but we begin to recognize that there is a commander. Moshe, Hashem says to Moshe, you command them.
Because Moshe said that.
Moshe said what?
Hashem said.
Say command.
Hashem said, you will be my messenger. So
I'm trying to put the words around it to integrate.
Let's clarify a little bit.
Yeah.
Generally, the only no created being should be serving any other created being. Should be worshiping. Worship God. Why? What makes another created being worthy of being worshipped? He's not infinite. He's not omnipresent. He's not omnipotent. He's some people are created stronger and bigger, and some are less.
Wait, is there a difference in the English word worship and serve? Like if the Rebbe says go here, do Mifsorim on Friday, and you do it, are you worshiping? Isn't that maybe? There's a lot of words here.
Worshipping is accepting someone as an absolute
commander, supreme.
The worship is that I'm here for him.
Oh, right.
Now, of course, there's that let's go step by step. So that's the basic premise, that I have no reason to serve anyone besides Hashem, and no reason to worship and to pray and to ask. Hashem is in charge, 100%. Hashem is just as close to a little ant walking on the floor than to the greatest holy smart man in the world. Because a creator is at a different league than any other creation. There could be many differences, many levels. There's very simple and basic two-celled creations, and there's very, very sophisticated creations. But they're all creations, and to the creator, they're equal. So we only serve God, and we only do God's will. However, God did establish that since there are different levels within creations, let's look at God created the animals for the sake of the human beings. Right? He created, in a sense, you could say, also Gentiles were created for the sake of the Jewish people. But that's not the ultimate. The ultimate being that to be served is only God Almighty Himself, no one else. And Hashem established, in order for us to understand His will, there are people who understand His will better than others. And that's Moshe Rabbeinu. Why is Judaism a religion that is foolproof and is strong and survived everything? Because Judaism is not, we're not believing a few people. Islam, you believe one guy. This religion, you believe 10 guys, whatever it is. And who said that God appeared to them? In Judaism, God appeared to everyone. This is something that all of us heard and witnessed. How God revealed Himself to all of us. Now, God didn't tell us everything that says in the Torah then, but what the Jews saw is God appointing Moshe Rabbeinu. And we heard from God that